I'm sure you replenished your levels of caffeine, nicotine, and glucose, and you're ready for the next session. Let me start by being interactive again and asking a very simple question. Who has a Facebook account?
I'm sorry.
All right. So, we're here to discuss Facebook tools in case of crisis. And I'm happy to announce that I have with me Ms. Monica Desai, Director of Public Policy for Facebook, a small startup company that you might not have heard yet, but I'm sure it's coming up. Monica is the Director of Global Public Policy on the connectivity team at Facebook, where she focuses on developing issues involving online communication service providers. Prior to joining Facebook, Monica spent over a decade in senior positions at the Federal Communications Commission, otherwise known as FCC. Her positions included service as Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. She also served as Chief of the FCC's Media Bureau and an advisor to Commissioner Kevin Martin on spectrum issues, during which time she worked on emergency communication issues, as well as served as a special advisor to the General Counsel at the FCC. Monica graduated from Georgetown University Law Center, cum laude, and has an undergraduate degree in finance from Georgetown Washington University, where she was a National Merit Scholar and graduated magna cum laude. So it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Monica Desai to discuss Facebook tools in case of crisis. Monica, take it away.
Thank you so much for inviting me here to speak today and for inviting Facebook to make a presentation. Nothing matters more than public safety, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on that point. Prior to joining Facebook, I spent 11 years at Federal Communications by telephone companies through the 911 system in the U.S., emergency broadcast alerts through television, and emergency communication services for the deaf and hard of hearing through relay services. Now that I'm at Facebook, it's very fulfilling for me personally to be able to discuss how we as a company uniquely contribute to public safety as an online platform. And as you could hear from the prior discussion, there are a number of issues involved with online platforms like ours, being involved in these types of issues. But I'm going to be discussing tools that Facebook has created that can be used by first responders, as well as Facebook's Safety Check and Community Help, which were created specifically for people who use our services. And obviously these tools are meant to complement the critical first responder services that are provided through the 112 system. There are two principles that we like to think about when we talk about the value of our company in connection with an emergency or a disaster. The first is the idea of information as aid. And this is the idea that immediately following an emergency event, people affected by that event desperately want information, especially information about loved ones and friends. The second principle is the idea of community resilience. This is the ability for communities to bounce back quickly and recover from a disaster. And that's not always rooted in physical infrastructure, but also in social connections. Daniel Aldrich, who is quoted in this slide, is a professor who went to Japan to study why some communities impacted by the 2011 tsunami had lower mortality rates than others, and why some communities recovered quickly while others did not. What he found was that social trust and connections in communities was a determining factor. Because of our scale, Facebook does have an ability to help get information to people who need it and help build the strong community connections that contribute to community resilience. Because Facebook is a place where people turn to for information, we've built tools on Facebook that first responders and relief organizations can use to help keep the community safe and informed, and help prepare for and respond to emergency and disaster events. I know many of you are familiar with these tools and use them. I'm going to go over them briefly just in case there are some of you who are not familiar with them or haven't used them. You can use any of these tools before, during, and in the aftermath of an emergency event. And we believe that these tools do help support efforts related to readiness, response and relief, recovery, and also building resilience. As many of you are aware, a Facebook page is a public profile of an organization. A person can like or follow a page, which allows them to receive posts from the page into their newsfeed. And community members can visit your page and comment on one of your existing posts. Pages can be a useful tool to disseminate information and provide a forum for community engagement before, during, and after an emergency event. Posts are what make up the content of your page. You can type a message or share a document, a photo, or a link. Posts can allow you to quickly, efficiently, and broadly distribute updated information. For example, you can alert community members to available resources and connect them with appropriate organizations. And you can also let people know how to access relief and aid. If your followers share your post, this can more broadly distribute the information. Photos and videos can also be used to help create more engagement with your page. You can take a picture of preparedness activities and share it to build trust. As an emergency develops, you can post photos and videos in a way to communicate what's happening and where it's happening. After an emergency, you can use photos and videos to discuss the recovery efforts and also to show the community how they can help. Facebook events are another tool that you can use, and they can be used to raise awareness or to fundraise for a particular event or disaster. They can be used to create and promote donation and volunteer efforts, such as cleanup efforts. They can also be used to promote awareness about training opportunities, for example, with first aid and CPR. I know groups was also mentioned in the last panel. You can use groups to coordinate and organize different groups of people. For example, for blood drives, for donations. They can be used for internal coordination among shifts and crews. Groups can also be used to communicate directly with strategic partners and other agencies. For example, during Hurricane Matthew, we saw that several different types of groups were set up to better coordinate emergency response and emergency and patient care. One WhatsApp group was set up to connect multiple medical teams across Haiti, enabling them to have more collaboration among medical responders and better life-saving services for those who are in need. Another group was set up to coordinate helicopter transfers and emergency services. And a third example of a group that was set up was to coordinate NGOs, local hospitals, and emergency workers. Individuals also use Facebook, and they use them to stay connected with each other, share important information, and organize activities. These types of activities can be especially important during times of crisis. In 2014, we launched Safety Check, and we created it as an easy and simple way for our users to say they're safe and to check on friends and family in one place after a crisis. The inspiration to build Safety Check was the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan. A team of engineers saw that people all over Japan were posting to let friends and family know that they were safe, and so they built a simple message board to better facilitate this type of communication. This simple message board ended up developing into the Safety Check that we have today. The way Safety Check works is that first we're alerted by a global crisis reporting agency that an incident has occurred. Then we begin monitoring for posts about incidents in an area. If enough people post about the incident, a Safety Check is activated. People posting about the incident might be asked if they would like to use Safety Check. From there, they can mark themselves as safe or note that they are not in the area. They may be invited to mark themselves safe by a friend. And also in Safety Check, you can see your own list of friends and see who's been marked safe and those who are not marked safe. Safety Check was just activated this week in light of the St. Petersburg attack. It was activated during the Brussels attack, the Nice attack, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with how Safety Check was used in those situations. In this particular example, a person is posting about a flood in Adelaide, Australia. Our teams travel to different parts of the world to learn about people's experience using Safety Check and how we can better serve their needs. In 2016, the team went to India to learn more about people's experience using Safety Check in Chennai after the devastating floods. They went to Kumamoto, Japan after the earthquake and other areas affected by disaster. We heard story after story of people opening their homes to their neighbors, cooking meals, and traveling miles to deliver food to affected areas. We saw that regardless of borders, regardless of culture, regardless of language, regardless of the type of crisis, people wanted to be able to give help after a disaster and also to find help after a disaster. As a result of those learnings, we built Community Help as an extension of Safety Check, and that was just launched earlier this year. From Safety Check through the Community Help extension, people can post asking for help or offering help and message others directly to connect. Posts can be searched by category and location, making it easier to find a person that can help. We built these categories based on what we saw people requesting and offering most, and also in consultation with the Red Cross and other organizations to understand what they saw people needing as a practical matter during an emergency event. I wanted to share our first ever post from a woman in New Orleans offering shelter, our first ever community help post from a woman offering shelter to anyone who needed it after a tornado in the area. We're hoping that Community Help can help foster the community connections like these so that that are so important in the aftermath of a crisis situation. I was also asked to comment on what support we might need from the public safety community and EENA members in particular. We're always, as hopefully you know, we're always open to your thoughts and your comments. So I encourage you, please let me know, and I'll share my contact information in the next slide. I would also ask that we work together on legislative and regulatory developments that may have potential unintended consequences in reducing or taking away the types of innovations in public safety that I've described. Our services, for example, can provide groups and Safety Check due to the technical characteristics of being an online service, while telephone companies can provide 112 services that are accurate, consistent, and reliable because of the technical characteristics of their services and how the 112 system was set up, and the network over which they offer services. Similarly, broadcasters can provide emergency broadcast alerts over television due to the unique nature of their services. The technical distinctions that underlie these services are critical. We would ask EENA members to be our partners in supporting a policy framework that supports continued innovative ways to address public safety ways that complement each other and that takes into account the technical and functional characteristics of services and platforms. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or get back on time with the schedule. And let me see, oh, here's mine. And you're welcome to contact me as well. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you. A lot of tools available from Facebook, and I like the resilience message, that it's always groups that can build the resilience after a disaster. Thank you very much for this. We can have a couple of questions, so are there any pressing questions from the floor? I see a gentleman right in front of me here. If we can have a microphone. As much as I would love to throw the catchbox, they're not allowing me, so.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Paul Kuppen. I'm a project manager of NetAlert. It's a alerting system in the Netherlands. My question for you is if it's possible to broaden our alert system, and a lot of European countries all have their own ways to alert the public when something is going on, to say when people open their Facebook app to directly see if something is going on in the area where they are at that moment in time. And the reason I'm asking this is that you showed us some major incidents, and we use our system in the Netherlands also in smaller cases, when a toxic cloud is heading over a city or something. And we use the system very location-based, and perhaps there are some abilities in Facebook to also not directly put something on a timeline of Facebook for the whole country. The Netherlands isn't that big, but just specifically location-based, one part of a city. So I guess Facebook knows when somebody has this app on a smartphone that person is in that particular area. So is it possible to, when somebody is in an area where we would like to alert the population, and that people can immediately see when they open Facebook that something is going on in that area, without following the Dutch police or whatever?
Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, I would love to learn more about what you're doing in the Netherlands, actually. That's really interesting. I mean, I don't know if that's possible. I mean, what you're saying, I think as a policy person, it immediately triggers privacy issues. I think, I think there's a tricky balance, right? With our services, consumers have to give permission in order to in order to have location services enabled. The idea of tracking, where somebody is, I'm not sure if there are overlapping privacy issues involved with that, but I think the intent sounds very good. I think what you're describing is a situation where, maybe I shouldn't put words in your mouth, but if there's an incident in a particular area, we can try to micro-target people in that area and then send an alert to them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, pretty much. Define a geographical area that is affected, and people within that geographical area be notified somehow. It's what we call reverse 112 as well. It's when you alert the population instead of the population waiting for the population to react. Okay, thanks for that response. We'll take one more question. Yes, please.
Thank you. Remy Bossu from the Euromed Seismological Center. I would like to hear you about the unintended consequences of the development. If I remember correctly, there was a false trigger in Bangkok of the safety check following a firecracker which was taken as an explosion. And for the community help, it will favor the people meeting each other And we know that when you offer this possibility, also bad people use them for different purposes. So I would like to hear what is your view about these potential consequences.
Potential consequences of using safety check?
Yeah, for example, safety check there was a false trigger in Bangkok of the safety check, Facebook last year, if I remember correctly, when a firecracker was taken by an explosion. And secondly, when you have the community help, so people offering help, you may have people, not really good people, offering, okay, so how are you going to deal with these aspects?
So what if a hoax, or what if the people offering help have not good intentions but bad intentions?
Yeah, no, that's a tough question. You mean through community help? Yes, I don't know how to address that question. I think that I think Minister Arafat mentioned in the last session, the idea of quickly pushing back as a public safety organization through responses. It's hard to control, what people are posting individually, I think. And I don't have a good response on that. I would be curious. Community help was just launched, and I wonder if we do have information on how many of the posts or how many of those offers to help were actually made by people who did not have good intentions. I don't know, but that's a good question to go back and ask our folks.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Monica. Excellent presentation, and thanks for being here.
Sure.